Hello friends, it's Yusuf on Wednesday the 2nd of October 2024. I have just under an hour to record my video for today, so I really can't spend the time doing retake after retake. Yesterday it took me over an hour of me repeating the same intro before I was able to get into any flow. So on my way to the studio today, I spoke with another maker, an artist, and again, it's the same thing that I'm hearing from people, that it's really, really hard. And they've been doing their practice for much longer than I have, and just finding it really difficult to make a living out of it. And we had a beautiful conversation, and I shared my recent experiences because just before I left Italy, I was also in a very dark space, and they are in that space at the moment. And I said basically that life will keep giving you the same lessons until you take heed and learn and make the changes that you need to make and grow and become the person that you need to become. And I learnt that myself during this trip to Italy. So, three things I learned on this trip. One, I always say to myself that I'm lonely, there are no people in my life, people don't think about me, people forget about me, I'm not important, words to that effect. And that's how I generally feel in my life, that I'm alone, isolated, people don't like me, and all of these kinds of things. And I realised that actually I do that to myself to reinforce that belief that I hold. And I keep myself isolated from other people. So throughout my life, I obviously meet people, and what I do is I create these connections, but then I will find a way of isolating myself. So I won't go out and nurture those connections. I will basically not think of them maybe after, and that will reinforce this belief that I have about myself, that I'm alone. And this is something that I'm going to change from now on. So after this trip, I did message people that I've met on that trip, and I am going to continue to keep up and maintain those connections and change that belief within myself that I'm not alone. And that's a really difficult and ingrained thing that's within me. And another thing that happened was that throughout the trip, certain patterns kept on repeating themselves. So one of the triggers that I have is that I hate feeling abandoned or forgotten. And when I arrived at the airport, there was no car to pick me up. And I kind of almost sensed it, like I had a feeling that that was going to happen, but maybe that's just because that's also what I expect. I expect to not be remembered and forgotten. And yeah, the car wasn't there, and I was duly triggered. And then also throughout the trip, we were dining in groups, so often the food was ordered, especially the starters and things like that. And on numerous occasions, someone else also noticed that I wasn't getting food for myself because I only eat fish, I don't eat pork, and I don't really eat meat. And it was completely okay for me to order food for myself, but I didn't. And on the last day, when we were having a meal together, I ordered a dish, and somebody else also ordered the dish. And when all the meals came, they had forgotten one of the dishes, but the other person had already taken one, and of course, so they should have. but my dish didn't come until pretty much everybody else had finished eating that they'd forgotten. And so this theme of being forgotten kept cropping up. And then after, there was another occasion when I went for pizza and we ordered similar things. When it arrived, the other person took the pizza and started eating it. And again, they'd forgotten to make the other pizza. And when it arrived, it also wasn't the one that I had ordered. So, recurring theme. And I also was on Instagram and noticed that there was an event happening in London, which of course I couldn't have been part of, but I was a part of that program and I didn't receive an invite. It could be because maybe the person saw that I was abroad, but the feeling it brought out in me was that I had been forgotten and I hadn't been invited. So in all of these experiences, I thought, what is going on? What am I missing? And I think the world is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And so is the universe telling me that I'm being forgotten because I don't see myself? I forget myself. And if I'm feeling forgotten by the universe, is it because I'm not seeing myself? Something like that. And another thing that happened was regarding faith and prayer and God. So on my flight to Naples, I was sitting next to a woman and we ended up chatting and she spoke a lot about her faith. And on the trip, there were also two other people and we ended up talking a lot about faith. And that doesn't usually happen because people don't really talk about religion. And those were quite in-depth conversations, and God and faith and religion just kept cropping up. And it made me realise that since I had my breakdown, I actually stopped having faith. I stopped believing. I stopped remembering God. And that is something that I did used to do. I was never someone that prayed regularly, something I strived to do, but I didn't do it. But I always did have a sense of faith and a sense of remembrance, and I had just forgotten that. I had just completely lost connection with that, and I saw that as a sign of maybe that, not that God has forgotten me, but that maybe I was forgetting, and to reconnect to having faith and trust and focusing on the things that are going well and on abundance, because it is really easy to focus on the things that we think are not going well. I know that it's something that I'm very guilty of doing. So I'm not quite sure what to extrapolate from all of these things, but they were just sentiments that kept cropping up, and I'm still reflecting on exactly what they mean, but definitely something around me not occupying the space and then thinking the world is against me because that space is not being made for me in the world, or something like that. So I shared those things with my friend, and I think it did resonate with her also. I have some things to do. I've got to make some small leather goods for an order, and I have an order for a watch strap, so I need to work on those a little bit today, and then tomorrow and Friday I have hopefully 2 full days to focus on on these. I also have to pay a lot of my invoices so that I can start to receive materials, so that I can make all of the stock for the shop, the pop-up shop that I'll be doing in December. And I've got to spend quite a lot of money, actually. I think maybe £2,000 to £3,000, so that's quite a lot of investment to put out before I have some money coming in. And I'm also a bit concerned because there's no regular income coming in at the moment. I had a regular teaching job, but that's stopped, and I did get some bookings, the teaching that I was doing, and that is something rather that I could leverage more. So somehow I need to focus on having 1 or 2 full classes a week of my own private teaching. That's what I used to do, and then it just fell off, and somehow I need to figure out how to get more of those bookings so that I can have at least a sort of basic level of income coming in again to pay for this rent and to at least feel that there's some regular income coming in rather than just me spending the money. As I mentioned, I always had a regular teaching job at the school, and that was always something that I knew would cover the rent, so that still was a reassurance. And I think for me, the teaching, the workshops, is something that could become regular again. Everything else seems a bit more longer term, so, or medium term rather, the shop and making more stock. So I need to figure out a way to get that. I think that feels like all for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.